Hey folks, welcome back. I'm David and we're here in my shop where I build E-War guitars. I gotta wonder if when most people think of tools, if they consider their workbench one of their tools. Well, personally, I consider it a tool. In fact, a very important one. In fact, it's probably the most used tool in my shop. That's why I finally decided to take the time to build this here rock solid split top Roubo. So, in this video, I'm going to tackle something that kind of perplexed me for a little while, just how I wanted to do it. So, now part of this split top Roubo is this tail vise. And this is a bench crafted tail vise, which is just magnificent hardware. I mean, it's just really amazing stuff. But without these dog holes going down the length of this bench, that tail vise isn't much good. And I looked around and, you know, there's two ways to go basically. You can go the round, steel round ones or brass round ones, or you could do the square ones. And I really wanted to do the square ones. I mean, it seemed like there was more craftsmanship involved, and it just seemed to be, they seemed to be better to me. So, and the thing that puzzled me was how am I going to get these holes lined up down this thing perfectly straight, perfectly in line with the sliding dog hole here, centered in this laminate, right? The holes themselves, they're not just straight down square holes. They're actually leaning forward about 2 degrees. And they're L-shaped too. They kind of come down, they're L-shaped, which is what keeps them from sliding all the way through the bottom. And I was really puzzled about how to do that. And I looked around a little bit and saw how some other people did it. And I came up with the way I was going to do it. And I used this here router jig that I made up. And I'm going to show you how I made that too. And I used that and I'm just thrilled to death. They came out straight, smooth, well milled, nice inside. And each one is identically shaped. So I think it's going to be pretty cool. If you think you might dig that, how about you stick around and give it a look. Okay, so now that all the pieces are completely milled up, I have everything shaped, joined, flattened, straightened, and everything is sized like I want it. I've got some of the parts glued together, as I've probably already showed you. But the next thing I have to do before I finish laminating up the pieces for the front portion of the bench is I have to make my dog strip, okay? And I've decided to use the square bench dogs in this bench. I've looked into it quite a bit and it seems to be the favorite for a lot of people. Not quite as easy to do, but I really like the way it works. And this is going to be my dog strip right here. I'm going to cut all my dogs into it. And I'm laying it out according to the bench crafted design here basically. So this dog strip is cut on this end. I'm going to be, this is the first leg is going to be flush right here. And they have the first dog hole about 1.25 inches in from the edge. So that first one is going to come down right inside the leg. So what I'm going to have to drill a 1.25 inch hole in the front of the leg where I can reach my finger into the hole and push up that first dog. But anyway, after that one, I've laid it out for 4 3/4 inches apart for each one of them, and it lands pretty nice. When it gets down to this side here where my other leg is, and of course my leg vise is going to be here, I've made the separation greater between the dogs so I could simply be able to get to them and push them up. So this one I've got probably 10 inches in between. I'm going to have an 8-inch chop on my leg vise. So I made these 10 inches apart so I could get them. And then it'll finish off nice here at the end of the board with about, you know, I don't know, that's probably about 4 inches left on the end. So I should get nearly 6 feet of clamping space doing this. And the way I've decided to do it, I've got to cut the holes are going to be in this shape right here. So they're angled somewhat forward about 2 degrees. And of course they have the little lip in it on the top to keep it from sliding all the way down. And I think the best way to do that is what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this board here, that one, and these two guys, and I'm going to make myself a sliding jig that's going to go across this dog strip, right? And I'm going to cut that shape into this, maybe in 2 different spots so I could do 2 at once. And I'm going to cut that shape, and I'm going to use my router to route down into this board, okay? Now, I don't want to complicate things too much, but what I'm going to do is when I cut these dog holes into here, I'm going to cut them, this is 1 3/8 thick. I'm going to cut them 1 inch in, which will leave 3/8 on this side of the board, okay? And once they're recessed and cut into place, I have these two cap pieces that are 3/8 of an inch wide, and I'm going to glue those on top. So I should have an end result of an 1 3/4 wide dog strip with a 1-inch square hole in the middle of the thing. So it ought to work out really well, and that will also keep those dog strips perfectly in line with my tail vise at the end, with the dog on the tail vise. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set up and start working on this template, and then begin routing these things out. Then I could glue this together and finally get it together with the rest of the laminates on the front edge of the bench. Anyway, that's what I'm going to get doing. So here I'm just laying out my piece of MDF. I wound up getting 3 fitted on this thing. I'm just raising that mark all the way up to the top. Now I'll mark it at 2 degrees. These angle forward 2 degrees, I guess, to get a little extra strength out of it. And the width of the shaft that goes down through the dog strip is about 1 inch by 1 inch. And then it gets a little wider at top where it's shaped kind of like an L or maybe a P. Now I keep these 2 side boards fairly snug to the main dog board to keep it from moving around. And I found the best way to do it, so I just cut it on my miter box, set it at 2 degrees, trimmed it, and then of course I'll have to finish that cut up a little bit on the bandsaw. And then afterwards I wound up filing a little bit too, just to make it just right. But it turned out really nice. Okay, so my jig's all set up. I got it set on my first mark, which is 1 1/4 in from the end of the dog strip board. And a lot of times I would drill this out with my with a Forstner bit to kind of clear out some of the wood. But I went ahead and I've got 2 different routers set up here. I've got my 1/2 inch long trim bit, and I've got a 1 inch long one in there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a couple passes at the 1/2 inch. Then I'm going to use the other one, the 1 inch, to finish it up. Anyway, let's see how this works out. So yeah, I set that, each time I set it, I probably went down an extra 1/4 inch each time. Every time I reset it, I just went back and forth, made several passes with each router. But it sure came out nice. I mean, it came out nice and clean. I love the way the L part of that thing just sort of rounded off real nice. Even though my jig was square, it followed the 1/2 inch router bit, the bearing, and it came out really nice. Very smooth inside too. It'll fit, the dogs will fit in here, I believe, really, really well. I was quite pleased. And actually this whole process was pretty straightforward and pretty quick. I did all this and made the template and everything just and did it in, gosh, I don't know, 1 hour and a half, 2 hours. Check my depth here. I got exactly 1 inch deep. Okay, so I am just really pleased with the way that came out. I don't know if you can see it in here, but it's just nice, really nicely rounded in here. Very smooth and straight and everything. I'm just really, really pleased. I think it came out great. So the next step I've got to do is to now take this end cap and glue it on here. So these are going to glue on something along these lines right here, and that will make my finished dog hole strip that'll be 1 3/4 thick with the dog hole that's fitted right in the middle. Okay, so I've got 2 caps to put on. I've got this one. I'm piecing it together because I didn't have enough long enough strips to do this. So, but I don't think it'll be a big deal. The grain lines up nicely on top where you're going to see it, and I think it's going to look okay. But anyway, so I'm going to glue that up, but then at the same time I still have to make another one more small piece. It's going to be the traveling dog hole that's going to fit onto this part right here, which is part of the tail vise. So I'm going to make one more of these with the dog hole facing the other direction, so the 2 faces of the dog holes will come together, and this part will travel back and forth on the rails within the bench top, and it's going to move that other dog closer to the other ones to clamp it in. So anyway, so I'm going to do the same thing. I have a cut off of the end of this board, So it should come out, it should look really good when it's done. I'm going to cut it right about here. And so anyway, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to glue this thing up while it's drying. I'm going to go ahead and cut the dog hole in this one and get that ready to go too. Yeah, so I'm just gluing it up here. I didn't show it, but I also sprinkled a little bit of salt in the glue, which keeps those cap boards from sliding around too much. And then I proceeded to use just about every clamp I owned. And I also kept the glue back from the edges a bit too, the edges of the hole. I got a little bit in there, but I was able to reach in with a screwdriver and a damp cloth while the glue was still wet, and I got it cleaned up. And here's the one that goes the other way. So you basically make it the same way, you just flip it around backwards. It flip-flops that cap piece onto the other side, but you really can't tell looking at it. It looks pretty good. Check my measurement. I can see my mark, so I think it's probably pretty good. 15/16, actually a tiny bit more than that. So, looks nice. When I glue this guy on here, and I flip it around that way, there's my dog block, and it's facing that way. I think that's going to be all right. So that was about it. Really turned out to be pretty simple. Isn't it funny, sometimes the things you worry about the most, they wind up being a breeze to do, and the shit you don't worry about, it turns into a nightmare. Anyway, this turned out pretty easy, and I'm very pleased with the whole thing. I really appreciate you all watching. If you like this sort of thing, how about you give me a like and subscribe? And come on back next week. I'm going to be installing this end block, the tail vise, and who knows what else, but it's going to move along further. Anyway, this is a great build. This has been a lot of fun. And I really encourage any of y'all that thought about doing it to give it a try. It's really been a blast. I really enjoyed it. Anyway, God bless you, and you all have a wonderful day.